Hello, everyone. This is Mark, joined as always with
Julie.
And this is our companion show to GenreTalk called GenreTalk.
Now, in GenreTalk, we interview writers, game designers, directors, producers, and actors. But with GenreTalk, we talk, and we are talking genre. We review different movies and TV shows, and it will usually just be the two of us, but we might occasionally have a guest host.
Yep. How often we do the show is partly up to you. So if you like this, let us know by subscribing or leaving comments. Like it, follow us, or if you want to be a super fan, join our Patreon over on patreon.com/Cabot Crossing. For those of you who don't listen to us on YouTube, might not know that Cabot Crossing is our publishing company where we publish novels and anthologies. And we are now also producing GenreTalk, Genre Play, and more as part of Cabot Crossing Publishing.
Today, we are talking about the streaming movie Star Trek Section 31. Too often we don't record until weeks after we watch the show or the movie, but this time we watched the movie literally less than 48 hours ago.
Yes, this is our hot take. Hot take.
Yes.
First, we're going to try to be spoiler-free in our review. Then we're going to get into those spoilers. At the end, we'll give our ratings. So if you don't want to be spoiled, we will cue you in to skip to the end. We'll also put some times or chapters in the notes to help.
Now, the official synopsis for Section 31 is, in Star Trek Section 31, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets and must face the sins of her past. It stars Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Georgiou, Omari Hardwick as Alok Sahar, Sam Richardson as Quasi, Robert Kaczynski as Zeph, Casey Roll as Rachel Garrett, and Sven Ruigrok as Fuzz.
Oh boy. I try to look at ratings or general review scores to gauge popularity. And remember, it's only been a couple days since it's been out. There were reviews, that came out early. So it's still pretty new. Could change a little bit, right? Maybe. But you can tell right away.
It could.
It could. And you can tell right away this movie was a little divisive or unpopular in many corners. So Rotten Tomatoes shows a score of 23% with critics and 18% with audiences, which is not great. Not great. So, but was it really that bad? What do you think, Julie?
Well, I wouldn't say it was that bad. It didn't feel like a Star Trek movie to me. It didn't look like Star Trek. It didn't feel like Star Trek. There wasn't a lot of Star Trek stuff going on. So I suppose as a Star Trek movie, it may not have been great. As an sci-fi action flick, I think it did all right. Full disclosure, I was quite ill while we were watching it, so I did sort of half doze through part of it.
Well, that's a great, yeah.
But I hesitate to say it was the movie's fault. I was very sick.
Well, for me, as Julie and maybe some of you know, although I write a lot of types of genres, I do love to write covert ops, action story type stuff too. And that combined with my love of Star Trek and liking misfit teams like Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad, very important. I should be ready to love the show, right? And heck, I don't think I ever told you this, Julie, but once long time ago, I outlined a pilot for Section 31 TV show, kind of like concept idea after Deep Space Nine. Yeah. And so I'm definitely in the right mindset for it. So I was excited when I first heard that they were doing a Section 31.
What else don't I know about you?
I know, right? I kept a secret like Section 31. Not only was I interested because it was Section 31, but also, we had Michelle Yeoh coming back, and she was great. She played one of the best characters that came out of Discovery, I think. And while she does a great job, and I do think there's a lot to enjoy with this action adventure movie, like you said, it didn't feel very much like Star Trek. I also think it was probably hurt by shrinking it down from a TV show to a movie. One of the key things, including an action show, is pacing. And you want to mix up the speeds of the pacing. And I felt like this one, probably because it was so condensed, I felt like it was going like 110 pretty much nonstop. You know?
And oddly enough, that's when a show seems to lose my attention, is when the pacing is just so fast all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a colorful mix of characters, but I felt like we never got to really know them.
No,
We never had a moment to really pause or breathe. It was just like one-liners and stuff. We just didn't get to know them.
no, we really didn't. So when things happened to some of them, it didn't have a real emotional impact.
Mm-mm. And the overall storyline, which I won't get into yet for spoilers, but I did feel like it was maybe a little bit too of a straight line in my taste. And I felt like some of the reveals were just a little too easy to see coming. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't up to the standards of that's currently like Star Trek Strange New Worlds has, or some of our older Star Trek shows would have.
Yeah.
And definitely not on the level of a lot of the Star Trek movies. It didn't feel like a movie that much. Really, it just felt like one of the TV shows just made into a movie time period. Three
Yeah.
episodes squished together, I guess.
It felt like we just watched 3 episodes of a show.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's get into more details with spoilers, and at the very end, we'll give our ratings. So, what's your spoilerly thoughts?
Uh, well, I was shocked at the beginning when they killed off, what was her name, Mel?
Yeah,
So early on.
the Delton.
Yeah, when they killed her off. But again, it was shocking because it happened so early in the show, but it didn't have a real emotional impact
No, it didn't. Because we didn't
because,
get to know her yet.
yeah, we had just been introduced to her. And so it was just sort of like, oh, I can't believe they just killed someone off so early. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well. I did see who the mole was early on, like I called it.
Yeah, me too.
And so we both were like, "Oh, it's the I can't remember what he's called inside the Vulcan body.
Fuzz.
Fuzz." You know, we both called it really early on. It seemed a little too obvious.
Oh, and the San, I think is San or San, her former lover,
Sam.
slave person.
Yeah.
I instantly thought the mask guy. I was like, that must be him. So because
Yeah.
it was so soon after that of talking about him. I was like, it must be him. I mean, we didn't have any time to consider any other possibilities. I think,
Yeah.
and it was him. So yeah, the surprises didn't work, unfortunately. I thought like the opening was a little cheesy. Like I get it. It was kind of like a mission brief, like Mission Impossible or something, but I don't know why, but it just came off kind of cheesy.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so that wasn't a good starting point. And then I just felt like it didn't have enough Star Trek references. If I've never seen Discovery, I think I'd be totally lost on it. I'd be like, what is it Star Trek? We just didn't have any reference points. There's no Federation ships ever appeared. We have one Vulcan who doesn't act like a Vulcan. We have some other Star Trek species like Deltans and was it Chameleoids and Charons and stuff, but those are lesser known ones from
Yeah.
that maybe somebody wouldn't catch if they weren't a real big Star Trek fan. I do appreciate that they put them in there. The Charons, especially like they're from the classic episode original series. Let that be your last battlefield. So that's a real, classic alien. I don't know. I feel like there wasn't enough Star Trek references. It was a little bit too different. I felt like the action adventure story was just too straightforward for Star Trek.
I feel like
There
it
was
just lacked heart.
It did lack heart. It felt like they said, "I want to make a Section 31 thing that's got a vibe of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad." ChatGPT, go give it to me,
Yeah.
and then they ran with that or something. That's what it feels like in a way. It just I didn't. I wanted to know more about how Section 31 was built and how it was continuing on from what we saw last in Discovery. I wanted to know a little bit more about that. I wanted to know. I wanted to see more Star Trek references. I guess I wanted a deeper theme in it because there wasn't really a very deep theme. It was just like Michelle Yeoh's character. She didn't really grow or change that much from it, and I feel like there needed to be more of an arc for her. There was no arc for any of the other characters at all.
No.
And I think they could have squeezed in at least one other character arc in there. That's something I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy something that James Gunn specifically is really good at doing these ensemble shows where he's able to really give each character some spotlight and sometimes give them little arcs and stuff. And it's difficult to do. And I wish they could have done that with this. And maybe that's because they tried to take a TV season and just squish it into a movie, and it just didn't work out too well. I did like Jamie Lee Curtis appearing at the end. That was nice. That was fun.
Yeah.
As Control. That was cool. I thought a lot of the characters really had some interesting potential. I think, like, look at the names again. Alok. I think he could be a cool character to return at some point as a Section 31 augment, you know?
Yeah.
He had a good presence about him, and they seem to be doing more of augments and exploring that, which is cool in Star Trek. I mean, I liked Quasi. It was pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. And that was odd because these mech suits, I don't think we've ever seen before in Star Trek.
No, that struck me as just kind of strange.
Yeah, so I'm like, how's this connect to anything we've seen before in Star Trek with these guys? I mean, he looks a little Borgy, right?
Yeah.
But this is before the Borg made it to this part of space, and he's wearing a suit. It's not cybernetics, I don't think. So I don't know. That was kind of weird. I almost wonder if they wanted a Borg, but then like, you can't have a Borg because this makes sense, and so they switched it around. I don't know. Rachel Garrett, I thought was interesting. She's a character actress we've seen in Arrow, and she's also in The Magicians. I thought she did a good performance overall. She's a Starfleet character I wouldn't mind seeing more of. Yeah. And the actor who played Fuzz was funny. It was interesting.
He was a character.
He was a character. And those nanokins, I kind of wish we could have learned more about them. So what I read in interviews, I've only read like a couple of different interviews, but what I read for that actor was he said that they were going to have an episode fully about nanokins and talk more about them. So I think that would have been really cool to have learned more about their species, and probably would have gone a long way to make us perhaps not suspect him as a traitor, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, kudos for adding some classic aliens back, introducing some new ones. The action scenes, the fight scenes were good overall. Like the choreography was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just didn't feel like Star Trek enough. And it was a little cheesy in places. I don't know. And we did not have enough time to get to know the dynamics of the characters very well or have really good fleshed out arcs. It was just too straightforward for Star Trek. Star Trek should almost always some kind of ethical twist to them, I think. I think that's one of the things that makes Star Trek different than Star Wars. Star Wars is very black and white usually. Or they're black and white, or they might explore the aspect of trying to reject temptation from doing something evil, right? The dark side. Yeah. Otherwise, they're pretty black and white. But Star Trek is always the best. Star Trek is the ones that are in the gray, which is in Section 31, which you think would be grayish, right?
Right.
And just because she's a villain, or she was a villain, and now she's trying to be kind of a hero or something, that's not the same kind of thing. They needed to explore something a little bit deeper. And maybe they could have done it in a series. I don't know.
Yeah. It just felt rushed.
It did. It felt very rushed. It was just nonstop. And it's exhausting to try to keep up with. And your characters, you have to give away a lot in exposition, like clunky exposition to explain things. There's very little room for subtext because you don't have time for it. There's no quieter moments between characters where you could hint around to things or put in red herrings. They're like, maybe that person's the mole because of what they said this one time or something, you know? Mm-hmm. There's no time for that. And so that's why I think we were able to tell who the mole is really easy, as was the big reveal of who the main bad guy was. It just, they were the very first thing I thought of. And I never thought of anything else. So that's not good. Not good for a surprise. Anyway, how do we want to rate this show? What do you think?
Weapons of mass destruction.
How many weapons of mass destruction out of 10 weapons of mass destruction?
Yeah.
Or 10 godsends, right?
Godsends.
Is it Godsin or God's End? I don't know. That was funny. But
and it's a good point.
Yeah.
How many godsends?
They had a really funny twist. There's some funny lines in there. They had a funny twist about lines too at the very end. I can't remember what it was, but there was some good humor in there at times. Just so fast to really get the punchline in. How many out of
How many
10
God
godsends?
sins?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say maybe a 6.
6. All right.
I feel kind of bad giving it such a low rating, but
That's okay. That's good. We usually give like really high ratings on most of the stuff we do.
it's because we
So
watch stuff we like.
yeah, we tend not to watch stuff we don't like, and we tend not to then spend time talking about something we don't like. We like to forget about those. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say 6, maybe even. Gosh, I don't know.
Maybe
I
even a
would
5.
maybe even a 5. I would say if you're looking at it from the lens of a Star Trek show, because you love Star Trek, it's going to be like a 4 or something.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it from an action adventure, I don't care how much it's like Star Trek. I just want action adventure. I'm looking at maybe a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I fall. I really think it matters where your perspective is at, and because if you're really looking for Star Trek, you're going to be really disappointed, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, if you're really looking for Star Trek, I'd give it about a 5.
Yeah. And I think this is Paramount trying to find different ways to hit different audiences. And that's why this is action adventure show, because we have Lower Decks, which is more comedic, kind of raunchy
I
comedy.
love Lower Decks.
I mean, I should say raunchy comedy, but more adult comedy. Yeah, I love Lower Decks too, and Prodigy, which is great for getting new kids interested in Star Trek.
Yes, it is good for kids.
Yeah, not that Lower Decks is. I made Lower Decks sound really raunchy, but Lower Decks is fine for teens or something, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's a little more risque than your average Star Trek. I get what they're trying to do and stuff, but this wasn't quite. This didn't land, unfortunately. Maybe if it had been a TV show, it could have landed better. I don't know. I hope. I wouldn't mind seeing some of these characters appear elsewhere in Star Trek. It's hard for me to imagine that they're going to have another Section 31, but we'll see what happens, what Paramount thinks after this. Okay, so that's about where we land. I don't think it was super duper negative, but definitely this was one of our tougher reviews. So
yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Let us know your thoughts about Section 31 in the comment section, and tell us what you think we may have gotten right or what we may have gotten wrong in our review. We always like to hear from our listeners. And if you have any ideas of something that you would like to hear us review for GenreTalk, please put that in the comment section as well. You never know. Maybe we'll take up your suggestion.
yeah, I'd really love, if you loved it, I would love to hear what you loved about it. And if you didn't like it, I'd like to hear why you didn't like it. So I'd be curious. This is one of those ones where it's like, it could go a lot of different ways. And don't forget, if you found us with this episode, you can also hear us interview creators on GenreTainment, or listen or watch us play tabletop role-playing games, and also discuss them too over on Genre Play. You can find all of these at cabotcrossing.com or our YouTube channel at Cabot Crossing. Links in the show notes. And I think that's a wrap for today's episode. So
until next time.
Bad monkey.